Come on in. Welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're talking about my Survivor 47 preseason cast assessment. I've got your winner picks, first boot picks, and everything in between picks for the cast of Survivor 47 right here. In this video, we'll be going in depth on how I think everyone will do this season, and as longtime viewers to this channel know, this is 100% guaranteed accurate. I don't miss. If you haven't seen my cast assessments before, I do things slightly differently. I'll look at each member of the cast, go over their background and bio, carefully analyze everything about them from their words to their body language to their proposed strategy. Then I'll tell you how I think they'll do on Survivor 47. As we go through the cast, I'll also hand out awards to each player. Think of them as high school superlatives, Survivor style. Most likely to win, most likely to be a challenge beast, most likely to think they're the mastermind, and so on. Then at the end of the season, I'll come back to this analysis to see how right or wrong I was. Throughout this cast assessment, I'll be using the official cast bios as well as Mike Bloom's interviews for Parade.com as the basis of my analysis, so go read his interviews. The link is in the description. All that said, let's dig into my Survivor 47 preseason cast analysis. Let's kick things off with the Yellow Gata tribe and my pick for first boot, 26-year-old marketing manager Anika Dhar. Look, Anika seems like a great person, but I'm struggling to see it for her. Anika's been through a lot. She lost her family home in the Tubbs wildfire in California, so she's definitely survived some hardships and has been tested in life in a way that I think is necessary for success in the game. Anika is a COVID fan of Survivor who's definitely on the more casual side of things. She says she wants to play like Parvati and Sandra and Sarah and Wentworth, which doesn't really tell me anything because those are just four popular players who play completely differently from one another. Going into New Era Survivor as a casual fan isn't always a bad thing, but in Anika's case, I just don't really get the sense that she has a good blueprint of her own game or her own skills and pitfalls. I think she's just going to struggle to keep up socially and strategically on a tribe that is likely to hit the ground running on those fronts, and even her face in her cast photo is like, On the plus side, I think a job heavy on communications is good for her, but she's really going to need that because I do think this is a pretty bad tribe draw for her. I think all the people Anika could potentially vibe with are on other tribes, and I don't really see any quick and easy allies for her here. Regrettably, first boot. Let's move on to 42-year-old podcast host Jon Lovett, who I am awarding most likely to get the most confessionals. Whether he lasts one episode or 13, Jon is going to have an oversized presence in the edit. That makes sense to some degree. He's a former Obama speechwriter turned one of the most successful podcasters in the US. He's a natural storyteller with a sort of David Wright meets John Cochran charisma. But will that translate to success in Survivor? I think even the most diehard Lovett fans would admit that he's not the first person who comes to mind when you think of outdoor skills, so he's really going to have to lean on his social game. And parts of Jon's personality come off a bit strong to me. In his interviews, he's got this anxious energy and a tone that kind of feels like he's talking down to you at times. That's not intentional, but it definitely exists. The good news for him is he is aware of that, so I think for Jon to succeed, he needs to put away the podcaster and be the off-mic version of himself. Good news for Jon is I think this is a pretty good tribe draw for him. I could see him getting on with Rachel or Sam or maybe even Anika pretty easily. My guess for Jon is that he's probably one of the first people out from this tribe, but there's David Wright upside for sure. And until he's gone, you can expect him to be the main narrator of this tribe. Next, let's look at 34-year-old graphic designer Rachel Lamont, winner of the award for most likely to play it too safe. Rachel comes to Survivor via her husband, and she was the female alternate for Survivor 46, and is finally now getting her shot at Survivor after years of applying. Rachel was born in Bangkok but moved to the US when she was 7, where she learned how to make friends and assimilate quickly in a situation where she was an outsider. Rachel wants to be friends with everyone but secretly run the game from the shadows a la Omer. That's a great strategy if you can pull it off, but there's a reason it's so rarely successful. Dovetailing with that, Rachel really wants to come across as extremely average at everything. Average at challenges, average socially, average strategically. But does average win Survivor? That's fine for a bit, but I'm just kind of getting Survivor 46 Mariah vibes where she just rides the middle too hard or plays it too safe when she should flip and ends up getting left behind in the game. I don't think Rachel will have much trouble early on. I think she'll be a low-key social threat with connections everywhere, and I think she'll probably have a relatively easy ride to the merge. But I'm worried her blend into the background strategy is going to work a little too well. Potential earn the merge victim who tops out at 0 vote finalist. Let's move on to 24-year-old sports reporter Sam Phalen, who I'm awarding most likely to be the fan favorite. Impossible not to love this guy. He's got this sort of golden retriever energy that reminds me of John Mish in the best way possible. Sam's a beat reporter for the NFL covering the Tennessee Titans, where he's in the locker room with the players getting the scoop. This is a job that requires a lot of charisma and coercion to get what he wants, and in general, I don't think Sam's problem will be the social side of things. He compares himself to Devin from season 35, and I do see that, but I actually see him closer to Jake from Survivor 45 in that there's more to Sam than meets the eye. Sam looks like he could walk into any frat in America and feel right at home, but like Jake, he's also nuanced. He was into theater and did drama and wrote poetry. I think that gives him a lot of room to wiggle on this tribe, and he'll be able to connect with a lot of people pretty easily. I mean, this is a tribe that looks like every community theater department in America, so Sam's ability to get geeky is going to be a plus for him. The biggest comparison I can make, though, is John Mish in the early days of San Juan del Sur. Great vibes, looks harmless, the kind of guy who could get caught red-handed grabbing an idol and get away with it by laughing it off. Sam wants to just be chill and be someone's +1 in the game. That's a good strategy for him if I think he could stick to it. I think this will get thrown out the second he hits the beach, and he's not going to be able to really turn down the heat in the challenges or his big energy at camp. Overall, though, I'm feeling pretty good about Sam's chances. He'll probably carry this tribe in the early part of the game, be a shield for his alliance, then go home early to mid-merge. Next, let's look at 27-year-old nurse Sierra Wright, winner of the award for most likely to be the social butterfly. Is this the cast assessment for Survivor 27 instead of Survivor 47? Sierra is so Lynn Spillman casting coded, it's insane. A former Miss Delaware, almost made it onto American Idol. Just look at her. Sierra is like transplanted out of time and space from Survivor's 20s into the new era. I think it's pretty easy to look at Sierra and write her off as someone who will get like 17th place, but I think she's got a decent runway ahead of her. She's got a big heart and is playing for her sick dad, but what really attracts me to Sierra as a player is her 12 years of service industry experience. I think that working in the service industry is some of the best preparation you can have for the social side of Survivor, and 12 years is a long time to deal with rude customers and patients. Sierra is also a longtime fan of the show and applied several times throughout COVID, but she's not so super fanny it'll be damaging to her game. I think socially she'll be really adaptable. I could see her really working with almost anyone on this tribe, but I'd expect her and Sam to be working together. And I do think she'll land as a solid number in whatever majority alliance forms on this tribe. I kind of feel like she's a mix of like Jeffra Bland and Ashley Nolan, a likable, solid, middle-of-the-road player who makes mid-merge 9 times out of 10, but who's a soldier in a larger army and used by better players, then ends up as collateral damage somewhere along the way. Closing out the yellow tribe, let's look at 31-year-old AI researcher Andy Rueda, winner of most likely superfan to succeed. Survivor loves their young male superfans, but there's some pretty high variance in the new era in how well they perform, from pre-merge flameouts to respectable endgame finishes. On this front, I think Andy's closer to a Charlie than a Jelinski. Andy's a master's student studying AI machine learning, and he's been a fan for about 10 years. Andy is all in. Rob has a podcast patron, going to the live events, you know the deal. A lot of superfans get on Survivor and immediately crash and burn. We may even see that this season. But I think Andy's really going to do better than your average superfan. His work in AI gives him the skills he needs for the number crunching aspect of the game. And I think his strategy of using social capital instead of over-relying on idols and immunity wins is good, if tricky to pull off. On the flip side, Andy's already talking about vote splits and plurality votes, and those are super risky moves to even talk about, let alone attempt. So there is the possibility that a vote gets flipped onto Andy early on after he tries to overcomplicate things. Especially in a small tribe, Andy comes off to me as the type of player who really needs just one solid ally who complements his weaknesses and who can rein him in. And I think his best bet on this tribe is Rachel, but I could also see him doing a little JT and Steven thing with Sam. Either of those combos would be super dangerous. Small chance Andy overplays his way to an early exit. I'd expect him to be in the game for the long haul. Let's move on to the Red Lavo tribe with my pick for most likely player to be the first one out or the winner, 33-year-old corporate lawyer Genevieve Mushaluk. This award is for players who I see as really high variance, players who I think have what it takes to win if they can get some traction, but who were very at risk in the early days. Genevieve is our token Canadian this season. She applied the first night Canadians were eligible, and her path to Survivor has been long. Sounds like she's been in the casting pool for quite some time. I'll be honest, I think Genevieve is going to be a blast to watch. She wants to lie about being a lawyer, but doesn't really have a lie fully cooked up yet. And she says she's gonna be terrible at lying anyway. So that will be fun. Genevieve has this really mischievous idea to find Beware advantages, but then lead her enemies to it, then sabotage the tasks so they can't get it and lose their vote. That's so devious, but a little too cute by half. Genevieve is kinda hard for me to get a read on. She's the kind of person who typically does very well, but she really comes off as weirdly unprepared. She didn't practice making fire or building shelter because Baldur's Gate 3 had just come out and she was obsessed with that. She probably should have ignored that game harder than I ignored Will my entire Baldur's Gate 3 run. I get the sense that she feels that the game will just come naturally to her, and I can really see her coming out of the gate overconfident, but then actually in reality struggling socially to fit in. On the flip side, I think Genevieve is pretty charming and seems easy to talk to, and there are some pretty overtly threatening players on her tribe. She can pit those people against each other and survive the early game. I think she'll find her place. Plus, Canada. I'm leaning towards the earlier boot side of things for Genevieve, but it's really not out of the question that she'll get to litigate her case at Final Tribal. Next, let's look at 43-year-old medical device sales rep Saul Yee, who I'm awarding most likely to be the season's villain. Saul's a great guy in real life. He helps people with neurodegenerative diseases stimulate their brains and regain the use of their bodies. But on Survivor, I think Saul is going to be one of our main antagonists of the season, and I cannot wait to watch him. Saul's another COVID convert to Survivor, but I think he's studied enough of the show to really have a good handle on the game. He plans to find idols, multiple, and use them offensively. He says he'll play more idols on his allies than himself. I get the sense that Saul will play fearlessly in a season where a lot of players want to play it safe, and that's really exciting. In general, I'd advise against coming out of the gate so hot, but I think Saul just has this bizarre magnetism to him that I think he could make that work. I don't see him as some big Majority Alliance leader, but I very easily see him as an unkillable Russell or Q-esque figure with one or two tight allies. One potential problem though is that Saul's a poker player who's won more than 200k in tournaments, and we all know how poker players do. Also, am I crazy, or is there a hint of Coach in here? Go listen to him talk. Saul has this assertive, mysterious, arrogant, borderline philosophizing way of speaking that to me kind of comes across as Coach-ish. He's not like overtly kooky, but there's just something in the way that he carries himself that reads as like South Pacific era Coach to me. Maybe I'm the only one, but I'm calling it now. I definitely think Saul is someone you can bank on making the merge. He's the strongest person on his tribe, he's got cult leader magnetism, and he's willing to play hard. And I think he'll be villainous and ice cold. I'm thinking he'll ride the Sol train to the end game. Let's move on to 23-year-old freelance writer Tini Chirichillo, winner of the award for most likely to be underestimated. In a season with a lot of superfans, Tini is the super fanniest of them all. Tini's played in live-action Survivor before. That takes the superfan cake in my book. Tini's a longtime fan of the show who says they're going to have a Mike White-esque power to build very sincere bonds very quickly. And I do think Tini has this comforting and unassuming quality that is going to give them the ability to fade into the background to the detriment of others. Tini's probably going to be a mostly social player, and what I think Tini needs is a really close ally who can be out front to take the hits while they're in the back building the alliances. Someone who's completely different and unexpected. I think Tini and Sol would be such a fun alliance combo. On the negative side of things, Tini's the smallest person on this season. I think they could really be a target, justly or not, if this tribe is losing a lot. So there's definitely a real possibility Tini is an early boot. Those first few rounds are when Tini is most at risk, but like Erica, if Tini can survive the early game, I really see them with a game that slowly builds steam towards the end game, and no one will see them coming until it's too late. Sleeper pick to win. Next, let's look at 28-year-old ER doctor Kishan Patel, winner of the award for most likely to be too nice for Survivor. Protect this sweet baby angel at all costs. This guy is humble, lovable, giving, insanely likable, and he's going to be eaten alive in this game. Kishan is the first doctor in his family and the child of immigrant parents. He says that the chaos of the ER room will translate to Survivor because he's really used to staying calm under pressure, and I'd agree that a level head is a great quality to have in the game. Where I see problems for Kishan is on the mean side of Survivor. The ending someone's dream part of it. Kishan admittedly is super empathetic. You can tell how kind he is after 5 seconds of listening to him. I really don't know how good he'll be at getting people voted out, and more importantly, how not to be that person. This guy is also just not going to be able to escape the superfan allegations, which is wild because Kishan's not even a superfan. He's a casual COVID convert, and there's a literal Survivor podcaster on his tribe. But I'd bet money Kishan is the one who's going to catch the superfan strays. Unfortunately, I just really see Kishan as one of the first few people out of the game, but I hope I'm wrong. I can definitely see a scenario early on where he's making personal connections, but not strategic ones, and I could see him getting left behind on this tribe as the game happens around him, and him not having the heart to full force heave someone else under the bus when he's on the ropes. His game will flatline early. Let's look at 32-year-old IT consultant Aysha Welch, winner of the award for most likely to be the season's final boss. Aysha says her superpower is that she's the kind of person who is able to make friends with strangers on an airplane, which makes sense when you learn that her side job is podcasting about reality TV on Rob Has a Podcast. Podcasting is a personality-based job. There are probably dozens of Married at First Sight podcasts, but people listen to Aysha because she's insightful and entertaining. I think that is really going to carry over to Survivor for her in a big way. I don't listen to her podcast, but in interviews, I was genuinely entranced. Her social game is going to be S tier. The flip side to that is she is definitely going to be recognized. Andy recognizes her, Tini recognizes her, and the cat getting out of the bag is definitely very dangerous for her, especially if she initially decides to keep the reality TV podcasting thing close to her chest. So that is very much a double-edged sword. Aysha's a huge super fan of Survivor, she's a longtime fan who knows that social game is king, and she really wants to lean on her social chops in the game. And personally, I think she'll probably be at the center of this tribe socially. On paper, I think Aysha's very well equipped for the game in all aspects, and I just really struggle to see a world where she's an early out. I expect her to be one of the main strategic players of the season and possibly even make finale. My guess is she goes out somewhere between 6th and 4th place and is one of the final obstacles the winner must ultimately overcome. Let's move on to 30-year-old esports commentator Cooney. winner of the award for most likely to overplay. The first thing you notice about this guy is his energy and his charisma. Rome definitely dumped all his stats in charisma. In less than 2 years, Rome went from commentating on video games as a hobby to being signed to the biggest esports agency and commentating on $2 million Fortnite tournaments, which I just learned that there are $2 million Fortnite tournaments. Also, what is Fortnite? Like, what do you do in that game? Anyway, Rome's high energy, he's funny, he's charismatic, and he's overtly all of those things. I don't think he can turn it off, which means he's going to be beloved by a few and annoying to others. He's got a huge ego also. According to him, he's going to play idols like every round and win every immunity and never get a single vote and then win unanimously. And then everybody will stand up and clap. I'm really excited to watch this guy play because he's going to go really hard. Too hard. Ironically, the best thing that could happen to Rome in this game would be for his tribe to go to tribal early and often. It's hard to envision a target on his back on day 3, and getting his feet wet early in the game would probably suppress the urge to overplay that he definitely has. If he hasn't gone to tribal by episode 4 or 5, I could really see him getting bored and pulling some sort of nonsense like Gem did last season and earning himself an early exit. Overall though, I do lean towards a deeper run for Rome. There's something about his smile that makes me think he'll be good at wriggling out of trouble, which he'll probably be in often. Rome will eventually be humbled hard, but I think it will be a while before his empire comes toppling down. Let's move on to our final tribe, the Blue Tuku tribe, with 27-year-old strategy consultant Caroline Vidmar, winner of the award for most likely to not know how they're perceived. In real life, Caroline is super accomplished. She seems really smart and motivated, but there's this understandable tinge of arrogance in her interviews that I don't think bodes super well for her game. Caroline just finished her MBA, and she has ADHD, which she says has given her the resilience and determination necessary to succeed in Survivor. Caroline's a longtime viewer of the show who says her strategy is to play things slow and steady at the start, build alliances in the shadows, then unveil each step of her master plan at Final Tribal Council to earn the votes. I think that all sounds great, but I just worry for Caroline that she won't be able to pull it off, and I feel like Caroline is simply going to be her own worst enemy. I think she has the right idea strategically, I just don't think Caroline's really aware of the know-it-all vibe that she kind of gives off. It kind of reminds me of Ellie or Emily in the early part of 45. Caroline also says she's very blunt and emotional, which are two qualities that can really put a target on your back in the early part of the game when people are looking for any reason to vote someone out. I wouldn't be surprised if she is a player who kind of ends up on the outs a lot early on and only has one or two strong connections throughout the game. I could see things going either way for Caroline, but overall I'm leaning towards an earn the merge early jury finish, where she'll have all the time in the world to consult on strategy with all the other early jurors. Let's move on to 26-year-old radio show host Gabe Ortis, who I'm awarding most likely to think they're the mastermind. It's fitting that we have a Jelinski 2.0 on Survivor 40 Several. This guy has early game flameout written all over him, but he'll be so fun to watch the handful of episodes he's around. Gabe is a former radio host who currently works as a barback who's going to use his interviewing skills to build alliances and write a Survivor resume a mile long. Gabe's a day one Survivor fan. He even remembers it was originally on Thursday, so we know he's legit. Gabe's here to play hard and make big moves and put his name in the Survivor history books. He says he doesn't really care about anyone else here. He's here to get in, get out, and get his million, and he couldn't care less about making friends. He's very Russell in that way, and that's also a player he compares himself to. To be fair to Gabe, I think he's more interested in emulating the Samoa version of Russell, where he isn't a full a-hole yet and is strategically dominating while having fun. But I'll be honest, I really do not think Russell himself could successfully run a Russell strategy in the new era. Spinning pointless lies and hiding camp supplies and endless idol hunts is just not gonna bode well for Gabe's game. My read on Gabe is that he's going to think he's running the show and has everyone in his pocket. He's going to have fun with his island antics, and it'll last about 3 or 4 episodes. Gabe's here for a good time, not a long time. Next, let's look at 59-year-old flight school owner Sue Smey, winner of the award for most likely to be gone too soon. Start the prayer circle now. I really want to be wrong on this one. I mean, I already love her. This is a top 10 cast photo of all time. Sue's here to play hard. She doesn't suffer fools, and she's probably going to get in a lot of arguments. And she's going to be the cause of a lot of drama. She is, as she puts it, a Sigma female. Good God, I need her to make the merge so she can interact with Jon Lovett and Teeny. At 21, Sue left an abusive relationship, and in her 50s, she decided to pursue aviation, learned how to fly, and now owns a flight school where she hopes to empower women in the aviation industry. Sue's obviously lived a super exciting life, but how does that translate to her game? She wants to play like a mix of Tony and Cirie, and I get a lot more Tony than I do Cirie. She really does not have the warm exterior of Cirie, and it's a problem if she thinks she does. She's kind of got more of the frigid exterior of Natalie Cole going on here. I want Sue around as long as possible, but who does she work with on this tribe? I could see her getting along well with Gabe, actually, and maybe TK, but I think Tiyana and Caroline are going to drive her nuts. And I think just on demographics, unfortunately, older women are targeted by default early. So that is at play here. The good news is that Sue's on a tribe I don't expect to see tribal council very often. On paper, at least, this looks like they'll be the most successful tribe in the challenges. So Sue's success is really going to be tied to the success of this tribe as a unit. Other players here have cruise control to the merge, but Sue's really going to have to put in the work to find her place in this tribe, or else she'll be on that pre-jury flight home. Next, let's look at 31-year-old athlete marketing manager TK Foster, winner of most likely to make the merge. Things would have to go totally bonkers for this guy on this tribe to not at least make merge. TK punched that ticket to the merge the second he stepped onto the beach. TK's in athlete marketing now, but he originally wanted to play football as a career until he was diagnosed with a rare kidney disease as a teen, which nearly took his life. That disease took his football dreams away, but he still managed to find a way to work in the NFL, managing athletes and their brands. TK is the biggest guy out here. He's super fit, he's super magnetic. He is a classic early post-merge boot. Personality-wise, he kind of reminds me of John Hennigan. Very kind and sincere when you break down the walls, and he's not putting up a front. In the early game, he's going to carry this tribe to a lot of victories. I think he'll be involved in whatever majority alliance forms on this tribe, and I do think there are a lot of potential allies for him here. I'm looking at Tiyana and Kyle and even Sue, as I said. And the more strategic players on this tribe will be more than happy to use him as their meat shield. But in the back half of the game, I just don't think anyone's gonna really let him get deeper than like 8th or 9th place. And anytime he doesn't have immunity, he's gonna be playing defense. Barring some tribe swap shenanigans, TK is gonna soar through the early game without issue, and then be too juicy a target to make it to the end zone. Next, let's look at 27-year-old flight attendant Tiyana Hallums, winner of the award for most likely to be unable to control their threat level. Tiyana's a huge triple threat in this game, but like Tiffany last season, I just don't really think she'll be able to keep that under wraps for very long. Tiyana is making history as the first native Hawaiian to play Survivor, which is awesome. And she was also the female alternate for Survivor 45 and is now finally getting her chance to play. Tiyana reminds me of Dee a lot, and that is a problem for her. This isn't her fault, but having Big D energy is not the energy you want to have when the rest of this cast just saw her dominate her season top to bottom. Tiyana wants to use her magnetic personality to work with all the big guys, use them as shields, and go deep together with them. So, you know, her strategy's not lighting my world on fire or anything, but it's solid enough. She wants to find idols and advantages, and I think she will be one of the more active players looking for those. Like if there's a journey, I really do see her volunteering. Tiyana's problem is that she's just too overtly threatening to make a truly deep run in the game. Division 1 athlete, social butterfly, and decked out in immunity idols if she has anything to say about it. At what point is that clocked? My guess for Tiyana is that she's probably not going to be in a lot of trouble in the pre-merge. I think she'll probably have a decent relationship with almost everyone on her tribe, but by Final 7 or 8, even her allies will be looking to jettison her as soon as possible and give her a first-class ticket to the jury. Mid-merger with late-game upside. Finally, let's close things out with my pick to win the game. 31-year-old construction worker Kyle Ostwald. The great energy radiating from this guy is unreal. He's a casting throwback to the first 10 seasons in the best possible way. Maybe this winner pick is just me trying to manifest something, but I think Kyle has what it takes to win. Here's why. Kyle's a construction worker who grew up in a really rough situation. He came up in a home without electricity, so I'm gonna guess he's not a day one fan, but now he's engaged and has a daughter with another child on the way, and he went back and demolished his childhood home and built his family a new home where his childhood home once stood. Yeah, I'd be saving that story for Final Tribal Council if I were him. Kyle compares himself to Jesse, and I do really agree with that comparison. They're both family men from rough backgrounds coming to Survivor to provide for their family at any cost. I'm a tad worried that Kyle lacks the killer instinct that Jesse had to make those really difficult but necessary decisions. There's an element of Ian in here, and it's not just the hair. But I really do think Kyle's gonna have a lot of success in the game. He's physical, he'll be great in camp, and he's got this low-key charm that is going to make him instantly beloved on this tribe. And I don't think he'll be wanting for allies at all. People will be coming to him. Strategically, he wants to take all the big threats to the end, so, you know, not loving that for him, but in general, it's just hard for me to see an early finish for Kyle. I think with him, we're in store for a really social, unflashy, but nevertheless impressive Tommy-style game built on close bonds and good timing. He's like if Cody and Jesse had a baby, and he's got the skills necessary to win in the new era. Sincerity, likability, and motivation. Kyle's gonna win. Survivor 47. Got nothing else for ya. Who am I right on? Who am I wrong on? And who are you rooting for? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, don't get idled out.